Hello, everybody. Today is April 3rd, and we are at the beginning of the second quarter of 2025. If you follow a normal, calendar year for your finances, I digress. MSPinitiative.com. This is where you're going to find everything that we do here, including some upcoming events. So in June, which is not that far from now, we will be indefinitely two places. One, we will be in Dublin for DataCon Dublin. So if you're headed to that part of the world for that event, or you just happen to be in the area, we're running one of our famous community block parties there. And this year, for the first time, we are working in conjunction with the great team over at Roost for the Flow conference down in Tampa. And we will be working with them. And also holding a community block party at the Flow conference as well. So two events coming up in June. Means we're going to be kicking off your summer. If you live on this part of the world, finally be warm outside for everybody, I hope. We'll do it right, community style. So MSPinitiative.com. Today we have Shane from Phin Security joining the show. How you doing today, Shane?
Doing great, George. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Where are you based, my friend?
Tampa, Florida. So already starting to get some of that heat, as you were mentioning. It's been very, very welcomed, but it'll pick up quickly. So in June, I'm looking forward. I actually just registered for the event for the Flow block party. So looking forward to that, and we'll see a bunch of folks there.
Awesome. Yeah, Tampa, man. Seems like a lot of people in the sandbox that we play in is definitely there. We usually, we've had Connor on in the past. So first time having you on. I usually give everybody a chance to kind of like give their background, like your history and, to kind of bring you into the technology sandbox, I like to call it, for MSP land. So have at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Shane Scorzelli, Director of Sales here at Phin Security, and really started with Phin as the first account executive and grown within the business. But overall, past industry experience, I really started in the tech space when I joined at ConnectWise. Started on the support team, realized, hey, there's some other areas that I think I could really fit myself into. Moved over to the sales team over on that side, and really got a great foot in the door in the sense of understanding the landscape of the MSP channel and really what the value is of what we're providing in terms of vendors and conversations and all those great pieces. So it was a really great baseline, and I was able to be in a couple different roles there, kind of learning the cybersecurity space, the PSA space, any of the in between, and really understanding, hey, what are the pieces that the MSP needs, and what are the things that I can have the conversation around to really bring my industry knowledge and my understanding and continue to expand that. So had a great experience over at ConnectWise, met a bunch of really great people, which as I've seen them continue to grow out, it's always fun seeing these people at shows where it's, hey, we got some people at ConnectWise, still got people at all these different vendors and really spacing out. So it's been great to see all of my peers continue to really take the same steps into the industry and expand from there. So from ConnectWise, knew I wanted to take that experience and that understanding, bring it to a company that I truly believed in and knew that they had a great ramp moving forward. And luckily enough, applied to Phin Security, actually as a suggestion from Wes Spencer, which was a funny connection that Wes made a post. I liked the logo, the fact that it was a manta ray, and was like, let me go see what these guys got going on. So I was able to talk with Josh and Connor, jump on board about 3 years ago now, and it's been smooth sailing since. So just continuing that ramp, continuing to give back to the channel and chat with as many great people as we can. So
well, it goes to show you marketing does count for all the people out there pressing all the buttons, making things look good. Hopefully. So I'm gonna pick your brain a little bit then, because obviously, we're in a micro industry to the larger technology industry, right? Like I love every time something happens, they're like, oh, like they'll never approve that acquisition, and I'm like, we're not Apple. We're not Microsoft. We're a smaller sandbox and a bigger pool, but I digress. Making the jump from a support role to a sales role, that's not always easily done. Sometimes people aren't successful doing that. Can you tell us a little bit about how you were able to make that turn? Because I think for a lot of people, and I'm just thinking about not just on the vendor side, even on the MSP side, right? Going from somebody who was in the trench, doing help desk, doing projects, going to, hey, now I'm talking to somebody in a sales, prospecting motion. What's the best way to make that work? How did you make it happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So to give a little bit preemptive of that, in college, I had a startup at one point that really drove my kind of business acumen in the sense of what I really loved in that space. So it really got me going in the sense of the IT world and understanding of that I really know nothing in that space. And then on the side of, hey, I think I could do something when it comes to the business portion of this. So when I joined ConnectWise, it was genuinely to go, hey, where's the place that I can get that really great baseline and understanding all the ins and outs of how a business works. So I think for me, that aspect of it was knowing where I wanted to eventually get to and eventually be in a position, but making sure that I set my baseline with the information that would really get me into a successful role in that space. So I think that's especially in our world, right? Most people come with that technical savvy, technical understanding. So understanding that I think is a big piece of it. And I think on the reverse of it is what are the elements of the other pieces that you want to get into that you can kind of get to beforehand to make yourself a pivotal point in that discussion, in that conversation. So I was lucky enough that I went, hey, I like the business piece of it. Let me get my understanding of really how a business works when it comes to technology. And that was really the first year and a half, 2 years that I was at ConnectWise of understanding that, and but also with the understanding of, hey, I want to look at some of these other areas as well. And it wasn't a, hey, I'm coming in, I'm starting in support and I'm moving over to sales. It was, hey, I'm going to get an understanding of really where this business works and how it works, going from there and then taking my skill set and applying it into where I thought I could fulfill the
Oh,
need and the understanding. And there's
I
so
love
many
it.
other ways of that too, right? You got sales, you got account management, you got QA. There's so many different pieces of what we do on a day-to-day basis that are extremely important in being effective. So understanding what your goal is and understanding how to get there, and then kind of matching those two is where I got through there.
I listen. Some of the best stories out there are people who started in the mail room
Mm-hmm.
and work their way up. So like anywhere where you can just start and like download information, right, in order to figure out what's going on. I mean, you know, so let me flip it. Let me flip the question around then in a different way. So you came into an industry that you didn't know much about. You got your foot in there, in the deep end to figure out what was going on. What makes you think that MSP, IT services, SMB, technology space, let's just brand it, all of those things. What gets you excited about that, versus you just going to work at, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, Google, pick a name.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the reason that I'm here is exactly that reason. And I think one of the things that is unique about our industry and what we do is the connections and the pieces of that, right? And seeing you at an event, George, or any of the events that you guys host, the amount of people that you see there, where it's, hey, I saw you in this conference in Orlando, and then I saw you at this conference in Dallas, and then I saw you here, and but not just, hey, I saw you, right? It's the difference is it's, hey, I had a 15-minute conversation around this one thing that we're doing. We then had another conversation around another thing that is taking the next step in that direction. So one of the things that really excites me about these events and being in this industry the way that we are is the communication and kind of the unity within it of we're all fighting the same battle. We're all doing it in different areas, but we're all trying to address the same problems. And the conversation, the understanding, and the expertise that really a lot of the people in this industry come to the plate with is what excites me to continue that route and continue to be able to effectively not only do what we need to do today, but really change what we're doing in the future. And I think that's the exciting stuff. You talk to somebody at an event, or you talk to somebody on one of these webinars, or you talk to somebody just on it, you give them a call to see how they're doing, and they're like, oh, we're building this feature, or hey, we're about to release this to our partners, right? There's a lot of different stuff on both the vendor side of the house and on the MSP side of the house that really is continuously to be on the forefront.
Got it. Makes sense. Makes sense. Let's flip over to a little bit of security conversation, just because, that's kind of the realm that you live in inside of the sandbox, right? So I'm going to throw a curveball at you. I mean, every 4 years, as we know, different people are sitting in chairs and different decisions get made. And the people who were making the security standard decisions 12 months ago are not the same people who are making them today. So like all of the organizations, departments, bodies, I don't know, put whatever label you want to it, kind of upside down right now, right? And it looks like the playbook that everybody was running on coming into 2025 kind of got shredded. At least that's how I see it. And they're kind of reinventing it. If anything, they're almost saying, hey, listen, from at least from a U.S. government standpoint, we're kind of pushing everything back down into every state to be responsible for their own security standards, right? Rather than everybody running under whatever we think in Washington, D.C. is the right rules. We'll let Pennsylvania choose for Pennsylvania, Maryland choose for Maryland, Delaware choose for Delaware, et cetera, et cetera. What do you see? Usually there's a little bit of dust in the air and sand that needs to like kind of settle before we figure out what's next, right? It's going to take time for all of these, individual areas to kind of figure out what their plan is. Does that complicate things for everybody in our space?
I think it complicates them to an extent, but I think it comes back to the fact that everybody here in our space is somewhat of a technical expert, right? And more so than others in different capacities. But I think understanding those pieces is we have the frameworks, we have the different pieces that we should be aligning with in order to make sure that we know we're doing what we need to do, right? And I think parts of those can be done with as the dust clears. So like as you said, right, the things are going to change, they're always going to be changing, they're pretty consistent in that space. So it's being, hey, I'm going to have that understanding of these are the things I know 100% are going to need to get done the right way because of the things that we align with, because we are the experts in that field. We understand that there are going to be other experts that might need other things, but if we do what we think are going to be proactive on that front, we'll probably be situated in a much better position, if not just for satisfying those needs necessarily, but also, hey, we're actually, not only are we doing that, we're actually doing this piece that's not a requirement, but we're doing it because we know that we are the expert and this is what you guys need. And it's probably going to be the next step into whatever that may be, right? Now, in the security awareness training space, luckily we're kind of in that space of there is a lot more of requirements on that front. So we're not hearing it as much in the sense of having to get that dust to settle. But there's a lot of different tools out there in a lot of different spaces where that is definitely a concern or something to be aware of, and be, again, try to be as proactive as possible rather than waiting for the dust to settle and then you're chasing.
That's fair. It's interesting, anytime there's a reaction, there's somebody else with another reaction. So like I read, I think it was not even 5 days ago, that the UK government, we talk about the US government, the UK government went the opposite way. I think they categorize managed services companies as like, before that, again, unregulated, not really being paid attention to. Now they have to also report cybersecurity incidents within a certain period of time or be fined, from a, national government standpoint. So it's just interesting how, like yin and yang almost, right? Opposites attract, I guess.
Yeah, and it's actually hilarious you say that because I lived in London and worked at ConnectWise UK office when GDPR was being launched. So we were prepping for GDPR over in that side of the house where the states really hadn't really had that full concern in the sense of, hey, this is going to be a government legalization aspect. So that was where it was like, hey, we're kind of prepping for it on this side in the sense of what we're seeing on these spaces. And like you said, no two governments are going to do exactly the same thing, but you can kind of see where they're kind of relaying it in a little bit there. So you can almost get a, hey, these guys are doing something a little bit different. Maybe we should be keyed into that because it's probably something that's going to get represented over here. Or if we're going to do something over here, maybe it's going to change a little bit. So just be aware of what those options may look like.
Yeah, it's just so it's just like ironic, right? Like one day we're doing something, somebody else is doing the exact opposite. We're like, okay, it's so interesting how that happens. But
yeah, and it just pops up. It feels like you said, year after year, depending on where things lie and what the necessities are in that time frame.
100%. Do you hear people in our space concerned about, the tariff conversation, right? I know, and I actually just saw it in a forum,
Yeah.
just this morning. Somebody's like, well, does that apply to software? I don't think it does apply to software. Am I wrong? What do you know about it?
So that is kind of where I'm at the same point of, hey, there is some dust to settle in that sense of we haven't had too much coming through from that side as far as hey, this is a current concern of ours. There's been one or two, but it's picking up, right? And I think that's kind of what we're expecting is for that to pick up. And as that continues to pick up, is to understand a little bit more on it. But I feel like we're actually at that point of almost letting the dust settle of that, of going, how do we get either around this, or how do we work through this to make sure that we can still do the things we need to do the way we need to do them as this uncertainty unfolds? Because that's kind of where I'm standing right now too, is we've had people go, hey, this is a concern of ours, we're gonna hold for a second, because they're the ones that are actually leading that of, we're not really sure, so we don't want to act on it. So if we can support them to the best of our ability in the time being, then at least we can put our best foot forward in that conversation, and continue that relationship, even if it is, hey, how can we continue to work together on that front? So I think it's being, as again, goes back to proactivity and trying to be as upfront and as straightforward as possible, but also understand what that landscape is as it continuously changes.
Yeah. Well, at least listen, I'm no expert on this topic. I literally just read it maybe an hour ago. Where somebody in an MSP forum was like, how does this apply? I was like, it definitely applies to hardware. Like
Yeah.
physical goods for sure. Like that's clear. Services, SaaS, I don't think it does, except there's an alternate component, which is always the case. Like if you're a US company and you're selling to somebody out of the country, let's just take US and Canada, for example. Well, there's a currency fluctuation that happens every single day, actually
Yeah.
every hour of every day. Right.
I was going to
Okay.
say even more frequent.
I mean, so I know for a fact MSPs in Canada say, are you billing me in my currency? Because I want to know if I'm paying the price I expect to show up on my credit card statement, or is it going to change every time?
Yep. And honestly, that's the biggest hurdle that we've had to get through in the past is, hey, what is this happening? Right. And now add the tariff on top of that, or however that's going to work. It's all right. Well, now we were concerned with that piece. Let's be concerned with this. But that is a good opportunity for other variables and other partners that we've worked with in order to kind of offer those pieces. And kind of as we're continuing to evaluate and understand what this looks like, hopefully that is going to be something that kind of smooths that process over of, hey, we have somebody local that is going to be able to represent us from a reseller standpoint. You are now able to utilize them to bypass some of those things. So it's like you said, continuously working in the system to understand the system to then benefit the partners that you guys are utilizing in that system.
I can't help but go right to the big elephant, in the space, which is Microsoft. Like 2 days ago, they had another price increase. I think that was like they've increased their price for 365 the last 3 years in a row. Right? There was the original NCE, then there was NCE 2, and then on April 1st, they decided to, hey, if you're not paying annually, you're under an annual agreement, but you're still paying monthly. Now we're increasing it again. Oh, and by the way, we slapped an increase on some of the other products like Teams, for example, or SharePoint or some of these other things. It seems like because they're the big kahuna, they can do whatever they want. But everybody else seems to get like, it's like the meltdown the second you send out a notice saying that something's changing. I'm not going to even try and say that it's fair because I don't think that it is, but I don't know if there's an alternative. Any opinion on that?
Yeah, I think you're correct in that, right? And by the way, what a weird day to announce that you're going to increase a rate on April 1st. Probably not your strongest marketing tactic there of a lot of response on that front. But yeah, I think they have all of those elements and all the pieces in play to be, like you said, kind of monopolize that side of it, right? And it's tough because until there is a disruptor that comes in and can really make that change, and that is a big change for that to happen, it's really not going to happen on that extent. Now, what I could see that potentially happening is something that is the next step of what does all of that platform look like. Again, that's probably already either in development or there's something out there that's currently being pushed, but it's going to take a long time to get there. So it's almost having to standardize off of that. And the downside is the standardization off of that is really just going to come by their decisions and what the economy and what that landscape looks like. Now, would it be great if at some point they're like, hey, we're going to lower prices? Now, I doubt that will ever happen, but there is the potential of that, right? So it's almost like you kind of have to deal with the pieces that you have to deal with in order to do that, but trying to find other ways that you can go outside of it to be accessible. Now, for us, we're very ingrained in the Microsoft side of the house because ours is very user-based heavy. It's very email-based heavy. So those are the things that are going to kind of tie into it. And I think that's the core. What does every company work off of? Users and email. Well, that is that kind of core basis. So until there's a little bit more of availability outside of it, it really does have that monopolization factor to it. The nice part is it's going to continue to develop, hopefully, just a little bit in a better fashion, a little bit more favorable to the end users rather than to the business itself.
For sure. Actually, literally before I came on, as I was scrolling some feeds, I saw that like in the next 60 days, Microsoft isn't going to be enforcing DMARC for all outbound email. Did you see that?
I did not see that.
Yeah, check it out when you get a chance. But
Yeah,
hey,
cool.
MSPs, if you're listening to this, you better make sure all your records are set up and you've done all the things you need to do, or else your email ain't gonna go. And
And
it
that's kind
sounds
of,
like Microsoft may even block incoming email that's not following the rules either. So just
yeah. And hopefully that's the steps
public
that they're
service
taking.
announcement.
Yeah, and that's hopefully the steps that they're taking, right? Is not, hey, we're going to make this more expensive and more complicated. It's we're going to make this more beneficial for the things that we feel are going to be there. At a size that they are, though, it makes it very difficult to get that pushed out across the board in a timely sense.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I think they were just enforced MFA like 6 months ago, man. I mean, it's interesting how slow the big guys move, yet they're the people that are supposed to be setting the standard. I digress. Um, Let me throw you another curveball since, I feel like every other conversation AI comes up because it's the marketing term of the day. Um, when it comes to your lane on the highway, obviously generative AI is, still in the very much, I call it the Wild Wild West. Like every 6 months, a whole new
Yeah,
conversation's happening. Technology's turned over. It's moving that fast. But I was just talking with a colleague yesterday, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I went to the new, went to Chat GPT. They just announced a new feature. I was playing with it. It's like, hey, I want to see this. Put a superhero cape on it and call it this, and bam, out came the image. And I was like, wow, that's fast, and it looks actually pretty good.
yeah,
We're not even marketing artist people, right? So
yeah.
I gotta think that capability in the hands of a bad guy make conning people a lot easier.
Yeah, I think there are the elements that people already know how to break in, but they're not good at doing it because of the personal touch aspect of it. And I think although AI is not there in the sense of going, hey, that makes it feel exactly like a person, right? You see a video of AI and you're like, there's something off there, right? Like I saw a guy swim with hippos the other day. I was like, that's not real, but it looks pretty damn close. So it's like those little things, right? And now that's in a video sense. If you're talking about an email, it's going to be a lot easier to replicate that. Now, that's the whole point of making sure that people understand what we're trying to look out for and those different elements of how that works. But those pieces are only getting better and better in how they're approaching it, right? And I think that's really the different parts that people can come into as well, right? It's not just email, it's not just text, it's not there's all of these different pieces. So I think that's where it's going to be concerning almost in the sense of there are going to be different ways that people can utilize this artificial intelligence. That's not a, hey, I sent this text message out or I sent this email out, right? There's going to be a much more personal touch to it, and that's really what sinks people in, because realistically at this point people are not getting that personal touch and are still getting into these traps or clicking on these things or getting into those cybersecurity risks, and that's a big issue. So as it continues to develop, I think in the way that it can develop on that side, it's also identifying those risks on our side and getting ahead of the game. Again, proactivity is huge when it comes to the cybersecurity space. So understanding what those other elements are that can be utilized for AI and basically trying to proactively get understanding of what those are going to be and what to look for in those. I would say, like for example, we got one the other day where it was somebody trying to come in and sell a service, but it was just trying to do something through LinkedIn. And I was like, this looks a little bit iffy, right? Now I was able to identify all of these spelling mistakes or different pieces in there where it was clearly put together by AI. And I don't even know if it was malicious, but like that's that aspect of it going, hey, this is something that clearly is not a person is trying to be the personal touch. So I think keeping that eye out and following up on that is the biggest thing. We're in such a world where it's here is what do you need? Here it is. Well, if somebody's coming to you and thinking that it is what you need, dig into that a little bit more, right? Understand what that is, and you can vet these things out pretty easily. So that's, I think, the other part of it is everybody's used to, you get an email, you make the click, you have the issue. Well, if you pushed into that a little bit further and understood a little bit more of the landscape, I think that's the best way to keep yourself aware. Once you really start pressing buttons, usually AI does not come doesn't answer those questions quite as nicely. So it's one of those where it's just be prevalent and be aware, and push for what you feel like is uncomfortable. I think that is nobody is going to nobody's going to push back if you ask an extra question, if they are legitimately of that conversation.
I remember when ChatGPT really first kind of landed on the scene. It wasn't that long ago. It feels like it.
Yeah,
And then they went to all the, the first people to complain were all the academic people, right? Oh, plagiarism, and they're just gonna have them write the reports. And then, like, I feel like 90 days later, like, an app came out where they could drop the essay into a portal and tell you if it was, written by AI or not, like what the percentage of the, like, I feel like
yeah,
something like that's gonna ultimately make it to the inbox. It's just not there yet. Like, they're gonna be like,
yeah.
oh yeah, this was definitely written with ChatGPT. Here's your ChatGPT score.
Yep. Yeah. And I think there are. So I saw a video recently on something similar where it was a professor who was like, "Hey, what is everybody using to get these scores? Like, this is ridiculous. There's no way." And they broke it down, and it wasn't that everybody was cheating. Everybody was using the AI in the capacity of understanding the information, and because they were able to understand that information so much more beneficially, they were doing much better on those pieces, right? So I think that gives you the scope of AI could be used extremely maliciously. Most of the people that I've ever seen that have been using it maliciously are not that in depth with the experience, right? They're going, I'm going to hit 100 people. I need one person to not understand what's happening and to click, rather than the other way of, if I have 100 people that are educated on exactly what they need to do because of that AI, they can then make sure that they're understanding what is out there. So I think that's part of it too. Is there's obviously the malicious aspect of it, but there's also a lot more information on the beneficial side that can be packaged and understood, that then vets out, hey, here's what you need to be looking for to make sure you're on that side. So as much as there's a lot of malicious people out there and a lot of bad actors that want to get in, there are 100 times as many on the good side. So get all that information from those, because that's how you're going to be able to stay prevalent.
Well, I mean, one thing is true no matter what technology we're talking about. The bad guys don't care about the rules or the law or what's copyrighted or any of that, right? They're just going to
Yep.
do bad things because they can, and usually there's somebody in another country that, they're probably not going to be easily findable, right? Versus, somebody down the street from you, but I digress. Eventually people who write laws catch up, but usually it's a lot further down the line, right? And by the time the technology companies are being enforced against whatever these new rules are, like, technology is moving so fast, like, it's going to be a long time, right? Before they all, like, reasonable measures are put for the average everyday person, right? So, it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see how this all unfolds. But, like, I don't think anything I just said sorted in the next 3 years, even on this topic.
No, I think, and you're spot on, right? It's almost the bad guys are leading the charge. We're chasing the bad guys to make sure that we're on as close to that as possible, and then the lawmakers are however far back trying to fix pieces around. Hey, this is the requirements. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. So you can't wait for the laws to be put in place in order to be cyber secure. The industry is moving at way too quick of a pace for it to be sitting around or sitting to wait for somebody to tell you this is what you need to do. Go have those conversations, talk to people in the industry, talk to I mean, again, this goes back to the first conversation, the first portion of the conversation, right? This entire channel is built around having those communications, having these types of sessions, having that. So I think that if you don't feel like you're in the place that you want to be, just talk with people, because they either are feeling the exact same way and you guys could get there together. They might feel a little bit behind and you can help them out, or they might be a little bit ahead and can help you get ahead in that space too. And I don't think I've ever met anybody who has not been open to a conversation around that type of space.
I would think if they've gone to the point where they're going somewhere, they'll at least fake a conversation. It may not be a
Yeah,
good one, but they'll at least try, right?
yeah, yeah,
Which is
exactly.
more for the people that never show up to an event. And if you've been following these podcasts, I think I've said, in my personal estimation, less than 10% of all of the people that could make it to a technology industry event in an actual fiscal 12-month calendar year actually make it to one, right? So that leaves 90% of the industry never actually gets to a person-to-person interaction. I find that interesting and intriguing all in the same, but also I digress. Um, the other thing I wanted to throw at you is, you know, just the obvious, and people are I find to be generally gullible, right? Like I know it's a lot obvious when the Nigerian prince email shows up or the you've won the lottery in another country email shows up, but it's a lot more intelligent now, I think is the way I want to put it, right? Like it looks like a PayPal or an Amazon or a Ticketmaster or even an Office 365 sign in, right? Where it's like, hey, I expect these messages to come through. So I don't think twice before, or by the time I realize that something bad's happened, I've already crossed through the bad place.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where it's so that's actually one of the presentations I had about a year ago was, hey, you're not going to get the Nigerian prince email, right? It's not going to be, hey, I'm in jail in Mexico. I need money for this, right? And I think that's the elevation that we're seeing, right? So there's the low hanging fruit of the older industry people who do not understand technology, who just are going to go and click on stuff. That was the original low hanging fruit. Now, well, we've kind of saturated that now, right? So we got to take that step up. The problem is now that step up is easier through the means that you were talking about before when it comes to the AI space of it. So I think that's the part that is in the security awareness training specifically, right? We all know, hey, if you get something from somebody that you don't know, you probably shouldn't click on it. The person in the HR department at whatever business it is that is a 30-man business doesn't understand that. And I think that's where it comes back into that education aspect of really making sure that people understand, here are the things to look out for. And I think the other aspect is doing it in a educational format, not a, hey, you did bad, we're now going to cost you because of this, right? It is very much we need to be proactive, we need to understand what's happening, and we need to get ahead of the game in that. And I think that's the other part of it too, right? Having the ability to be flexible within those trainings or within the phishing from our perspective is a huge deal. We want you to be able to create your own stuff. We want you to be able to add in your own pieces, because you might be getting an experience that's different than this person, and you might need to address those things as well. So I think having at least one industry expert of, hey, this is what we need to be aware of, and then having some type of proactivity in the sense of understanding those things. And then also you can't not do something if something does go wrong, right? You have to have a plan of, this is what we're doing as things are going to go wrong, because you always have to plan for that. And if you plan for all three of those, you're going to be as prepared as you possibly can be in order to eliminate that elevation of where these people are getting more and more sophisticated in their attacks.
Yeah, I argue the TikTok and the Instagrams and the Facebooks and or even something as simple as a Walmart. I think those are the emails you're seeing now. It's not
Yeah.
like they've gotten smarter.
Yeah. Yeah. Even like when you said TikTok, right? So I was scrolling through YouTube the other day, and there was a sign up right now and get $5,000 from Mr. Beast. It's like, that's not happening. Like I know Mr. Beast is a very great person in the sense of giving out a lot of money in a lot of different places. He's not just giving out $5,000 for anybody who signs up on the website, right? So it's little things like that where you see, like, that's a pretty easy one to identify. But if there's something there for me, like, hey, these new golf clubs are coming out and they're going to be at half price, it's like, you need to think about that a little bit more, right? It's one of those things where it's going to be more targeted, it's going to be more thought out on their side, so we need to be more thought out on our side as well.
100%, 100%. Has anything? I know it's gotten more expensive and they put more Swiss cheese in it, but going along the people who either have a cybersecurity policy, their customer has one. Like basically a lot of them and I'm not an expert in it, but I listen to people who read these things on a regular. And like a lot of what I'm hearing is there's a lot of escape hatches for the companies to tell you that you didn't follow the T's and C's to get out of things. And one of them is, can you prove that certain things were done on a regular? Not, hey, was it done this time? Was it done 2 times ago? Right. And I think the reportability aspect or the accountability aspect, it doesn't matter until somebody calls and asks you for it or you're challenged for it. Right.
Yep.
And so people usually are, I guess the real world analogy is, hey, it's all set. Did you put your seatbelt on every time? Because the one time they caught you on camera without it, that's the time, right? That's when you're going to get
Yeah.
the ticket. So, like, unfortunately, they're using these little trip ups in these policies now to effectively not cover you when an incident happens, especially when the incident is, hey, the person who is approving accounts payable and receivable got an email. It looked like it came from their customer. It looked like it was a legitimate email. You switched the bank account that the funds were going into, and now all of a sudden, 50 grand disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's that is a difficult experience to go through, right? And obviously there needs to be a learning process if that does something that happens.
It
But I
happens all
think
the time. Don't
it happens way more often than it should. It's scary in that sense. But I think that goes back to the cybersecurity insurance or the NIST framework or CIS or however you guys are, however somebody is aligning, right? Making sure that not only do you have the plan on how you're going to put those things in place, but how you're going to continuously review those things and make sure that they are on that, right? So whether it's some type of tool set that gives you, hey, here's all the things that we're doing, and here's the breakdown of exactly where that is, and here's the report that you could dive into further than that, right? So I think there is definitely the alignment of, if you have the alignment that you should when it comes to cyber insurance and policy, or if you have those pieces, I mean, even when you're talking insurance, right? The whole reason that they want all of these things in place is so they don't have to pay out anything, because if you have those things in place, we'll never have to worry about it on their end. So it's very similar in the sense of, do the things the way that you need to, doing them the right way, and making sure you're documenting on all of those, because that is the framework. Now, I think the other pieces, when you come to NIST or CIS or any of the other frameworks that people align by, those are extremely important as well, to understand what that lines up as. And maybe you're not applying for those specific qualifications, but aligning yourself with those gives you the understanding of, hey, we're doing the top level set of requirements based off of the industry standard and even beyond that, and we're tracking it and continuously tracking it too. I think that's a huge aspect of it, is the reporting piece. Is you don't want to just, and it kind of comes into the MSP paradox, right? Of, hey, Mr. MSP, I haven't seen you all year. Where have you been? And everything's been working fine. It's like, yeah, that's the whole point. Or the vice versa of it. Hey, Mr. MSP, I've seen you all year. You've been in here constantly. Nothing's working. Why are you in here all the time, right? And you kind of get that in between. But if you can go, hey, you haven't seen us all year, but here's your QBR where all of the things are for lined up for the last year. Not only are you giving them the security aspect of it that they have to have, you're giving them security aspect and peace of mind, because you're showing them those pieces, and you're also validating the aspects of what you're actually doing for them. So you're showing your value in that side as well. So them personally satisfied, them technically satisfied, and them in the grand scheme of the business satisfied in that space. And that's really where you kind of have to line all of those things up. And it's not easy. So that it's not like hey, we're just going to set this up and here's your nice easy report. It takes a while to get there. But as you're continuing to mature and progress into that, it makes it a lot easier. And what it does is it ends up setting up what you guys as an MSP would be considering successful. So now you can replicate that as you continue to expand the business, and it ends up being a lot of work in the short term with a lot of success in the long term, with a lot less work in the long term, because you already have your standards put in place.
Right. But at the end of the day, I summarize all of that, which is, hey, bad guys are the source of our problem.
Yeah.
Did you do reasonable things to make sure that you didn't make it easier for someone to do bad things? Right. I mean, I could put it another way. Did you lock your front door when you left your place, or did you leave it wide open and somebody stole everything in your house? Like, just lock the door. I'm not saying somebody won't try and break in anyway, but like, don't make it easier for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I use that exact analogy all the time of, you could have all the highest security system in the entire world, but if you don't know how to lock the front door, it's completely useless, right? So it's those little pieces of not overcomplicating for them. You as the MSP, I'm the one I'm gonna create this great security system. Nobody's gonna be able to get into this house as long as you press that one button. Make sure that they know how to press that one button, and everybody should be at the be in the best place that they potentially could be overall.
Right. Because doesn't it come down to, like, back to, they use a cliche here, chain's only as good as the weakest link, right? So,
Exactly.
if the wrong person in your company clicks on the wrong thing that one day, everybody else did what they were supposed to do, but that person sent 25 grand to an account that, instantly transferred that somewhere else to never see those funds again, that money's gone. And last time I checked, the local police department will surely give you a police report, but that's not going to do much for you. And I don't think, I mean, I haven't checked recently, but the last time I heard, like FBI or any of those people, like if it's not a high enough dollar amount, they won't even talk to you.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too, is identifying the people who are bigger risks in certain capacities, right? Somebody might be, hey, I'm just in this, I just make phone calls, that's all I do. There's very minimal risk in what they're accessible to, right? Well, you have the person who's the in the finance chair where it's, hey, you access all of our money. We probably need to give you a little bit more of an understanding and maybe even test or try a couple different things out. As soon as we hear, hey, this other company got broken into by X, Y, and Z approach, hey, let's test our own people, see if they fail for it immediately and educate them on that, or at least go about it in a little bit different of a fashion. Because not everybody, as much as everybody in a business is extremely important, different people have different levels of access, which is a huge piece of it too.
100% agree. I mean, I'm not, the money thing's the easy one. I see that all the time. I hate to say it happens all the time.
The money's the
But
most basic one, for sure.
the proprietary company data is also a big one that people don't think about until, probably too late, when you realize that your, information that's not public domain knowledge is out there, right? Like I'm not even just talking about, hey, the credit card monitoring, hey, your credit score company, data is out there, right? Because that happens, I feel like every 2 days. Like MGM, I just saw an email that they, hey, if you want to apply for your year of credit card monitoring, click here. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't really go very far, but I digress. I'm talking about, imagine the secret formula to Coca-Cola got exposed. Like that kind of information, bad news. And by the time it's out there, you can't put the genie back in the bottle then.
Yeah, yeah, and that's although Pepsi would probably be pretty happy if they found out that formula. So there's small benefits from that, but yeah, in the grand scheme of things, that is where everybody's really the company's bread and butter is made, right? So like you said, you can take a chunk out of the company where it's the financials, but those are the ones where it's, well, now it's the piece that makes us run and what makes us tick that is also available. And I think that's the other part. People think of it as a financial gain in all capacities, and that's not always where it is. Some people think it's a click, it's gone, now we're done, we move on. A lot of times it's you click, it sits and sits and sits and sits, and then all of a sudden something on the tail end of it is. So I think that's the other part too, and it goes back into the education aspect of people don't know what to look for, and if you're not vigilant on what to look for or understanding that space or being aware of it, it makes it very difficult to find it when it happens. And like you said, I'd be very curious to see how deep somebody could get into like a Coca-Cola type deal.
I don't know if you heard the story, but they intentionally did not try to copyright or patent the formula because then it would have been out there already. So they never published it.
Yep. Isn't it supposed to be like locked down in the Atlanta factory somewhere
It
and like
is.
behind a giant seal and
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
one of those spinning wheels?
In Coca-Cola, Jen's like, that's company's gold. Of course, she's a huge, not Coke Zero, not Coke, but Diet Coke is her kryptonite, especially Diet Coke from McDonald's. So if you ever want to have Jen, she's having a bad day, just get her a Diet Coke from McDonald's.
I don't blame you.
Although, have you ever done the test where you can they try and tell, you have to decide where the Coke came from? Did it come from a bottle? Did it come from a can? Did it come from a fountain? Like, have you played that game before?
I haven't done that one. I've done the Pepsi Coke challenge before, but I've never done just the variety of Coke flavors.
Yeah, it's hard business, man. We're gonna have to try it at an event sometime down the road. It's curious. You're in sales and there's a lot of sales tools out there, right? Like Zoom Info and Seamless.ai. And I think there's another one called Apollo. There's all these ones, right? I feel like the bad guys have almost graduated, like email's still there. And it's definitely the first place they go. But then they're going to text you and then maybe they send you a Facebook Messenger message and they're trying to cover you from multiple channels now. Have you seen that sophistication happening?
I definitely have seen steps in that direction. I don't think it's gotten nearly as far as it will. And that's I think a big piece of kind of the the being the next step in what this the kind of bad guy type persona is, right? Is, hey, I used to just be a guy that blasts emails, makes as many calls as I can, send out as many texts. Well, now they're getting a little bit more pivotal in, let me understand the person that I'm going after. Let me understand where the weak point is of those businesses. And the problem is, with all the information that's out there, it gives a lot more variability to that. So that's where I would say the biggest thing is just being careful on, as much as you can limit that, helps on that front, right? Make your social medias private. Make sure that you're not accepting people that are, you don't necessarily know in that space. Because I've heard of one horror story where somebody saw that somebody was had a family member that was having an issue, and they said that there was an event that was happening for that type of issue, and then that person tried to participate and ended up losing a bunch of money or a bunch of information one way or the other. And it's like, well, they didn't even harp on the fact of just sending a blanket email. They went so personal as to go into exactly where they knew the pain would be. And I think it comes into the sales aspect, right? It's a malicious sale. That's really what it is I'm going to find out what's your curiosity, and I'm going to harp on that in order to be there. Now, with sales on the vendor side of the house, right, we're all talking about what your needs are, what the expectations are, what you're trying to get out of the business. They're trying to hit on your soft points, right? So it's, hey, I see this guy, like for me, hey, I see this guy loves golf. Okay, great. We'll send him that. Or, hey, I see this guy loves football. We'll send him something when it comes to that side of it, right? For you, send you, hey, here's some free Super Bowl swag. Like, that's something that it's like, yeah, exactly, right? Immediately you kind of get perk up a little bit to it. So I see those things being more prevalent. Again, I think that's where it needs to be, again, proactivity on understanding what those things are that you're putting out there, making sure that you're limiting them to the extent that you can. And again, when you hear something that raises the hair on your back of your neck, ask the question to find out where that's coming from, because it's not coming in just from email anymore. It is much more personal. And there are a lot, like I had just had a great conversation with somebody earlier today. I had to vet out every single thing. I made sure that they were a legitimate person, legitimate company, and a legitimate interest before I accepted the meeting, because just clicking on that link potentially could have sent that direction, right? So it's these pieces that are now evolving. And I think it comes back again to the proactivity and education on, hey, here's something else to look out for. Be aware of those, because it is turning into this next step. Luckily, it's not exploding as much as I thought it would as of this point, but I could see that flip could happen very, very quickly and very, very easily. As soon as somebody goes, hey, this worked, I'm going to now get this out to all of my other friends, because we're not the only one with a group of great friends. Our great friends are doing the right things and doing the right cybersecurity, but the bad guys have a great group of friends as well. And they might consider them great friends in the sense of that they're all close to each other, but they are doing the bad stuff. So if we can avoid giving them that avenue in, we avoid giving that avenue in for all of them.
Man, these guys move so damn fast these days.
It is crazy.
It's crazy. All right. So big picture, talk to us a little bit about the MSP program from Phin. Why adopt your platform versus others? And what the experience is, not just from the MSP's perspective, but from the end customer of the MSP.
Yeah, absolutely. So within everything that we have created has been with the MSP in mind, not only from the first 2 years that I was on board, but really this last year. Not only have we gotten everything that we've created for the MSP, but I always say that we are MSP focused, in that everything we've created to this point has been for the MSP, and we're MSP driven in that not only are we going to continue in that route of getting new features in and being able to continue in that progress in that direction, but we take a lot of that guidance as a partnership and understanding, here are the things that we need, here are the things that we need to add, here's how we continue to benefit, whether it's marketing materials, anything along those lines. So through and through, everything that we have done has been with the MSP, and really focused on, when it comes to the MSP side of the house, the onboarding process being extremely easy. It's about a 10-minute onboarding for a new client, and then after that, everything comes out of automation. So simple and effective is kind of my whole mentality. Simple in the sense of the setup, effective in the sense of the delivery. On the end user side, that's the same concern, right? We want them to be getting great quality content. We want to make sure that their end users, or that they're getting great quality content easily, but it's going to be very effective in what we're actually delivering. So we do that a little bit differently as well when it comes to the reporting, automated reporting. We do several different varieties of training to make sure that every time they get a new training, it's going to be something brand new. And then when it comes to the learning moments, we are going to basically, if somebody clicks on a fish, we're not going to go, hey, you did bad. Here's a slap on the wrist. You now have to do this extra long training that doesn't relate. We're actually going to educate them on exactly what they did wrong and walk them through that exact experience and what we call that learning moment. So all of the things that we have really focused on is to make sure that SAT is extremely important. Security awareness training, phishing, all of those pieces are extremely important in exactly what I've been talking about throughout the conversation, right? Being proactive, being educational, and being on the forefront of that piece is exactly what we're looking to provide. The way that we're looking to provide it is making it a very easy experience for the MSP to know that they are going to get very, very topical, very, very top shelf training and phishing out the door, and they're going to be able to do it with almost no maintenance whatsoever. And then on the flip side of that, we want to create a great end user experience, because it goes back to what we were talking about before. If you're just sending these guys a bunch of things to check a box, sure, you're going to qualify for cybersecurity insurance. But if you're not doing it the right way, not only are you going to check the box, you're going to instill the cybersecurity learning aspect that you're actually looking to deliver. And also you're going to create a great experience. So one of the things that I love with Phin is that we get the feedback from the end users going, this was so much better than our last platform. We really love the training. And I like the learning moments because I know I did something bad, but I actually understood it, rather than just trying to blanket over the top of, here's a bunch of great information and half of it's great information, right? So we're very pivotal, very direct, very digestible in all capacities. Very easy on the MSP space, very easy on the or on the end user space, but very direct and informative across the board to make sure that you're actually getting what you need out of a security platform.
Yeah. Hey, MSPs just tend to not have a lot of time to go back and make sure that the wheel's still spinning. They usually, somebody raises their hand before they go and look. Let's be honest, but something that's a little bit, turn it on, let itself on board, and let the system do what it's supposed to do. I mean, if everything worked that way, I think the MSP would be sitting on the beach doing their job. We know that that's the
That's
commercial,
the
not the reality.
dream. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is we want to, we were talking about that baseline beforehand. You need to have the baseline. We can provide that baseline when it comes to the pieces that you need on that front. You bring all. We'll teach them how to lock the front door. You make sure that the rest of the house is solidified.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a good. It's a good marketing line. Big picture, where do people go get more information if they want to see something, they want to talk to someone? Like, how is the program set up where it's pay as you go, or are there long-term commitments? Like, how does that all shake out?
Yeah. So if you guys wanted to, either you can email me, Shane@phinsecurity.com. So pretty straightforward. But you're more than welcome to reach out to me directly, and we can get you lined up with any information or any questions that you have. Phinsec.io is the website. You can start a trial on there or request additional information from that perspective. We are not only on functionality standpoint MSP focused, also on the billing side of the house. So everything that we do is based off of actual usage in arrears at the end of the month. So we basically give you the platform. You run the platform the way you need to run the platform. We'll let you know what you actually utilized at the end of the month, and then that's how we go about that billing side of that. So it's month to month. It's very, very simple in the sense of you never need to overcommit to anything. We're going to give you start at this commitment. Everything above that is very flexible, so it's very fluid and very MSP favorable when it comes to the billing side of the house as well. We have different tiers in there also. So as you continue to grow within the business, you continue to get some extra benefits. And again, the best part that I love about our partnerships is not hey, we signed a contract. It's how can we continue to be better for you guys? And I think if you like our sales team and the development of the actual product, our partner experience team is second to none as well. So across the board, a lot of great people here at Phin, and one of my favorite parts about working here.
And then from the Microsoft side, I assume that as they're adding users and removing users, your system automatically reacts to that.
Spot on. So we are very integrated into Microsoft. We're working on a few things on the Google side of the house. So on the little portion outside of the Microsoft wheelhouse, right? But everything that we do with Microsoft is very ingrained. So basically, we have a Graph API to directly inject those mailboxes or directly inject those emails if we wanted to. We have an automated allow listing. So within about 4 or 5 clicks, not only are we going to do all the allow listing on Microsoft on your behalf, we're also going to update that consistently as well. Then we also have our user sync with Microsoft as well. So basically, all you're doing once you have the setup, you're actually never coming back into Phin as an MSP. You just add the user on Microsoft, bring them in, send them a welcome email, add them to training and phishing, add them to reporting, send them that report automatically, and you guys get that report on the tail end. So very much so you deal with Microsoft, we'll handle all of your Phin side of the house, and you'll be off and running at that point.
Yeah, it's all, all these cool MSP tools out there. I always love to add. They don't like to remove, but
Yeah.
gotta be able to ebb and flow, right? As every business does.
Yep,
Um,
exactly.
for the people who are listening to the audio version of this, Phin is not spelled with an F. It's Phin. So just want to make sure you got that part right, because you're like, oh, this email's not working.
Yeah, I forgot that not everybody can see the shirt.
Yes, PHINSEC.io, correct?
Yes.
Perfect.
PHINSEC.io.
Perfect. Shane, enjoy the sunny and warm Tampa.
I shall.
We'll see you soon enough, I'm sure. At least in June, at the very least. But I'm sure that won't be the only time we see you this year.
Looking forward to it as always, George. Very much appreciate it, and it was great chatting.
Absolutely. Guys, this session was absolutely recorded. Go back and rewatch this. We're going to post it on MSPinitiative.com, which then goes to the podcatchers, the YouTube page, and all that good stuff. Keep following us back here. We do these once a week usually, and you can check everything else out that we do at MSPinitiative.com. And I know initiative, I fat finger it all the time. Google will spell check it for you. Shane, catch you on the flip side. Everybody else, catch you online and hopefully at an event near you. Take it easy, everyone.